listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundaram, and with my co-host Ashley Case, we will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry. Today's guest is Jody Alves. Jody is a 26-year-old proposal veteran.
I wish.
Having worked since 1995 as a contractor and full-timer for international gaming technology, IGT, formerly GTECH, based in Providence, Rhode Island. Jody was born and raised in Rhode Island. Her path from University of Rhode Island to today was a long and winding one, from working on as a research program at a local psychiatric hospital, account exec at a public relations firm, to managing public relations and advertising for a local bank, to 19 years of freelance marketing communications to proposals. Beyond her day job, Jody teaches proposal writing at URI. For 8 years, she has introduced students to the profession, creatively taught the requisite skills for various proposal types, and created a feeder system for local businesses, including IGT. In December, Jody will complete her 2-year term as APMP's International Board of Directors. Nice, Jody. She joined APMP in 2008, attended her first conference in 2011, and hasn't missed one since. Wow. She presented at 6 BPCs and did several chapter symposiums. Her APMP focus has long been on bringing many more young people into the profession and developing content for commercial and public sector practitioners. She's working on bringing industry-specific programming to APMP members. Wow, there is so much to talk. Thank you so much for joining Scribble Talk. Welcome, Jody.
Thank you, Bhaskar. I'm happy to be here.
Jody, today when the recording is happening is Diwali, so I wish you happy Diwali as well. Long, positive, full of happiness and good health.
Thank you very much, and the same to you.
Jody, let's go back to the very beginning. Where were you born, and let's talk about your high school and education.
Okay, I was born in a city called Cranston, Rhode Island, which is just south of the capital of Providence. It's the third largest city in the state, and it's part of the smallest state. For anybody who doesn't know, Rhode Island is the smallest state in the United States, but somehow it manages to have more than 400 miles of beautiful coastline, and I encourage everybody to come and visit. Yeah. As for high school, I went to a school called Cranston High School East. Go Thunderbolts. We had a great competition with those folks who went to Cranston High School West. And then I went on to the University of Rhode Island. I got a bachelor's degree in psychology. And this is one of those things that I still kick myself for, but I attended Bryant University, which is in Smithfield, Rhode Island. A really good business school, and I was studying for an MBA, and I finished short by 3 elective classes just because life got really busy. The year I was supposed to finish, I got married, changed jobs, and bought a house, and that was overwhelming, and so I never finished my MBA, but can't look back.
That's fascinating. I think people who, I think now you have enough learnings in your life and working, you can teach an MBA program yourself, Jody.
Yeah.
So any early memory thoughts of growing up in Rhode Island as a child and as a teenager?
Well, I mean, we had a fun childhood. We lived in a nice little middle-class neighborhood. There wasn't a lot for girls to do back then, except for Girl Scouts, which I did. There weren't any sports for girls back then, which I was very interested in. But we, spent a lot of time, and we were good students. We spent a lot of time after school being outside, riding our bikes, just kind of having fun. And, we weren't kind of as scheduled as my kids were growing up, or as a lot of kids are these days, because there are so many more opportunities for them to get involved in things. But it was, we were, I actually still keep in touch with a group of girls. We call ourselves the kindergarten girls. We are 7 women who met in kindergarten and went to school all the way through high school together. And then kind of most of us went our separate ways. And then all of a sudden we found each other again about, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago. And we keep in touch all the time now. And we share what's going on in our families. And between the 7 of us, we have brought 19 children and 11 grandchildren into the world.
Wow, kindergarten girls. Sounds great. It's like a little pop group.
Yeah, kind of. That's what we are.
Is there any naughty things that you kindergarten girls did during the schools, or you were all well disciplined?
We were pretty well disciplined, but we had our fights over a couple of the boys in class a couple of times. I think that's about as bad as we got.
Don't mess up with the girls. That's good. So moving there, you did the university, and what was your very first job? It could be professional, not professional. Do you remember your very first job?
Well, one of my first jobs was as a lifeguard at a local public pool. But my first real job was, since I had gotten my degree in psychology, I decided to see if psychology was for me. And I got a job working on a research project at a local psychiatric hospital called Butler Hospital, which is one of the oldest psychiatric hospitals in the country. It's an excellent location, and I was working on a 3.5-year project that was studying alcoholism in married couples. And then I found out that psychology wasn't really for me.
Alcoholism in married couples. Any interesting findings?
Just that the more that you involve family members in treatment, usually the better off the result will be.
Got it.
Because that means that the person with the addiction or the issue has support for their treatment and recovery.
Do you think it's a good idea to drink together as a family or not to drink together? Was there any suggestions on that?
No, that really didn't come up. This was just about treating people, individuals who had an issue. So, but it was a good learning experience, and it was also interestingly a part of my path towards where I am today, because one of the things we had to do as part of that project was to recruit subjects for the research project. And I got into a lot of the writing of the, promotional literature, the advertisements and things like that. And that actually helped lead me to my next step. So it helped me kind of start on the path that I was supposed to be on.
Got it. And what was the very next role? Because 19 years in marketing, public relations, and so on. Let's talk us through that careers all the way into how did you get into the proposal?
Yep. So I was at Butler Hospital for a little over 3 years. And as the project was wrapping up, I was able to find a position at a relatively new public relations firm that had just been started as an adjunct to a local advertising firm. And I was able to move to that role as an account executive and eventually to senior account executive. So again, writing kind of, started me on that path from the work I had done at the hospital. And now I got to see, to use my writing skills for public relations purposes, and had a lot of very interesting clients over the 4 years I was there, from consumer products like, soapstone fireplaces, to shoes, to actually rifles, office products, there were a whole bunch of really interesting things that we did. And one of my clients ended up being the bank that eventually hired me and led to my next step, which was moving on to the bank and being given the role as manager of advertising and public relations for the bank. So I was at the public relations firm for 4 years, moved over to the bank, had a wonderful experience there. It was a small bank. Everybody was like family. You could walk down the hallway and call the CEO by his first name, and he knew everybody, and he just, everybody was very involved and very collaborative. But this was the 1980s, not that I want to age myself, but this was the 1980s, the late 1980s, when a lot of smaller banks were being gobbled up by bank holding companies. And after, I think, maybe 2+ years in that role, which I really enjoyed, we all got laid off because our bank had been bought by a bank holding company out of Hartford, Connecticut. And so it just so happened that the day we were all let go, I was in labor with my first child. So I ended up staying home, and they could not offer me a job to go back to that was comparable to what I had before. So I ended up staying home. People knew I was home, started calling me, and that's how my 19 years of freelance work started out.
Wow, what a varied experience that you got there, Jody. I mean, from PR to marketing comms, to proposals. I mean, any memorable PR campaigns or advertising related marketing comms campaigns comes to your mind?
Yes, absolutely. We had a couple that we did at the bank. Excuse me for 1 second. I've got to turn that off. We had a couple of very memorable campaigns at the bank, and we had to work on a shoestring budget because we were such a small bank, but we did a campaign that was all about, back in the day, you could earn 11% on a savings account. And we were launching a new high interest savings account and trying to convince people that our competitor banks were offering them peanuts. And we actually hired actors and dressed them up like peanut vendors and sent them up and down the streets of downtown Providence, handing out bags of peanuts that also directed them to our bank for, to come in and start an account that would earn them a lot of interest. We also, when we had an initial merger of our bank with another bank, the campaign, the merger, because we were a federal savings bank, the merger enabled us to do a payment to all of our depositors of a certain amount of money per every $100 or every $1,000 they had in their accounts. And we did this campaign by hiring an armored truck, the kind that picks up the money at various businesses. And we put posters on the sides of the trucks, and we ran all over town in that truck, and, letting people know that this merger had happened and that there was, that it made a lot of impact to the city, to the state, because it actually not only put money in depositors' pockets, but it also put money in the pockets of a lot of local small businesses and things like that. So that was a fun campaign, and both of those campaigns won what's called a Bell Ringer Award out of the Publicity Club of Boston. So those are two that I had a lot of fun with.
Wow, I think those are super. Everybody come to the proposal industry at different levels and with different skill set, different experience, and what a journey that you had when you entered the world of proposals. So now you have come to the world of proposals. What was the very first proposal, and talk us through your proposal career as well, Jody.
Well, it's I actually didn't realize it at the time, but when I was at the public relations firm, I kind of learned how to do proposals at that point. We had a very specific structure for the pitches we made to prospective clients. And it didn't really hit me until I actually got into business proposals that I had been doing proposals all along. But I got a call from a friend who had just gotten a writing position at IGT, and she called me on her first day and said, hey, sometimes they have too much work for the staff we have here, so would you be willing to freelance? And I said, well, I've never done business proposals before, but yeah, sure, I'll give it a try. And I really thought that I wouldn't like it because I thought, reading this document called an RFP and just answering the questions, I mean, that's going to be boring. And when you consider all the fun stuff and all of the creative and feature writing kinds of things I had an opportunity to do at the PR firm and also at the bank, I thought, oh my goodness, this is just not going to be fun. And, what can I say? Love at first sight. I read an RFP, they gave me some editing to do on a proposal. They called me and said, okay, here's your first section to write for a proposal. And it was kind of just like jumping in with both feet and seeing, do I know how to do this? There wasn't a lot of onboarding. There wasn't a lot of support at the time. It's just, how to write, how to edit. Here, this is what you need to do. And I found that writing proposals, business proposals, was not as dry and dull and boring as I thought it would be. There is still room for creativity. There is still room for, putting your best effort forward for, gaining knowledge and doing research and all of those skills that go into creating a successful proposal. I found, to be actually something that I enjoyed. And I freelanced for IGT for more than 12 years, while I was also doing other clients for my freelance business, anywhere from local nonprofits like the Ronald McDonald House, did some work for them, did some work for big companies like AAA, like Amica Insurance, excuse me, and a nice little folk art studio up in Sutton, Massachusetts, about 45 minutes north of here, called Valancourt Folk Art. Had a very varied list of customers, but it was IGT that gave me most of my business. It was nearly full-time at some point. And at some point, after about 12 and a half years, they offered me a job to come in-house. And I said, sure, why not? The kids were, my son was off to college. My daughter was nearing the end of high school, and said, yep, this is the time to do it. So I've been in-house since 2008.
Wow. Talk us through your IGT team and what sort of projects do you bid for and anything. And in this 2.5 years of COVID, how did the team work together and so on, Jody?
Well, I'm glad you asked about that, because we have an incredible team. We have, I believe, 31 people in the department right now. We have a management team. We have a team of bid managers. I think we have 5 or 6 bid managers. We have 10 or 11 writers. We have 4 graphic designers. We have 4 editors, and we have 2 production folks. So we are pretty self-contained. Our company is in the lottery industry. So we provide the technology and the services around supporting a lottery. So that's where all of our all of our proposals go either to the lottery side, which is what I work for. So any state or country that has a lottery, our technology is in the UK where you are, because we've supported Camelot for a lot of years with the national lottery in the UK. And I think, I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm pretty sure we have the majority market share for lottery. And then several years ago, we bought the IGT side of the business, the legacy IGT side of the business, which is on the casino side. So we're a pretty full service, lottery and gaming provider around the world. And as for COVID, I mean, COVID hit our interests very hard. Casinos had to close. A lot of the retail businesses that sell our lottery tickets either had to close temporarily or went out of business. But the recovery is very good. And as far as our department is concerned, I just marvel at how we have worked remotely. We are still remote. It looks like we might be going back to the office in January, depending on how COVID goes. But we've been able to very effectively make changes to processes that we used to do in person that don't necessarily require all of us to be in a room. And we have not skipped a beat. There hasn't really been a difference in the number of projects we work on, although we are seeing more lotteries that want electronic submissions, where in the past they would always want us to do paper submissions. So that's a big difference. But yeah, we really haven't skipped a beat. I still marvel at the fact that we haven't skipped a beat since all of us being in different places.
Wow. At what point in your career you came across APMP, and talk us through your journey with APMP, the BitCons you attended, your talks that you have given, and all the way to becoming the member of the APMP board of directors as well, Jody?
Sure. I honestly did not know that APMP existed until I came in-house at IGT in 2008. So that's when I officially became a member. Because the director we had in the department at the time was very into having us learn more about how to better ourselves, how to better our final proposal product. So I went to my first conference in Denver in 2011. I think maybe there were about 400 or 500 people there. And I found that a lot of the sessions I went to seemed to be focused on federal. And there, I'm one of those people who always knows that I can take a nugget of information, helpful information away from any session I go to. But there were some things about some of those sessions, because they were federally focused, that didn't apply to the way I do my job. So when I went to Denver in 2012 for Bid and Proposal Con, there was an open forum at the end of the conference for anybody who did what they were calling commercial proposals. And it was just an open forum to see what people thought, and was there any, were there needs for other kinds of programming and things like that. And I spoke up, as I typically do in forums like that, and it caused me to meet a couple of people who were interested in what I had to say, which is basically, why don't we all get in a room and put, get a whiteboard and talk about what it is we need here. And at that point, I met Rick Harris, and we started talking about a project to bring some people together to start getting into the needs of the non-federal sector of APMP membership. And yeah, kind of haven't looked back since then. So I began working on that project along with a lot of other people. Let's see, presented with a team from my department on digital assets and proposals in Atlanta in 2013. I presented in Chicago in 2014 on the class I teach at URI. Also presented that to the SPAC conference down in Atlanta later that year. I think I did. I don't remember if I think I presented something in Seattle in 2015. I just didn't present in 2016 in Boston, but I helped introduce some of the sessions as part of a helper from the Nor'easters chapter, which was the main chapter in the Boston BPC. And then I've presented in, let's see, New Orleans in 2007 on lessons learned processes. Was part of a panel in San Diego in 2018 for turning younger professionals into seasoned professionals. Still did a lot of that, town hall meetings with commercial, B2B kind of members, and developed a lot of programming, did webinars and things like that. We used to call it the business sector. Got to meet a lot of people, find out what the needs of that other sector of membership was, and we were able to come up with some pretty interesting programming. And I became a member of the board of directors 2 years ago. It's been an honor. It's been a privilege. There have been good times and there have been bad times. But I will tell you that it's a very good group of people. They are committed to growing this organization, this association, and also providing for the needs of members. And I am always going to be thankful that I was part of the team with the leadership that got this association through COVID, because things could have been very, very bad. Things were bad, but the fact that the association came through as well as it did, from something that brought a lot of other associations down, is something that I'll always be really proud of.
Wow, Jody, the fluency you had in responding to your APMP journey was unbelievable. I can't remember the talk that I did for APMP, when did I did for APMP, other things, but presenting at 6 BPCs and attending from 2011 board contributions, symposiums. I think continue to inspire us and continue to be the guiding light as others do in the organization. Thank you, Jody. So we talked a lot about your early life career, APMP, and your company, IGT, bids, proposals, etc. I think it's time to spend the next 20-25 minutes on more about you. So tell us 3 things not many people know about you, Jody.
3 things that people don't know about me. Well, I can tell you that most people who know me will not believe this, but I'm actually inherently shy. I will walk into a room at APMP and sit down at a table and start talking to people, and I don't know how I ever really learned to do that. I think it's probably because the APMP audience, the members, people who attend the events, are just open to having discussions with people. And so that's kind of helped me get a little of my shyness out. Another thing is that I sing Beatles songs whenever I have an opportunity to sing Beatles songs. I sing in the house, I sing in the car. I have embarrassed my children when they were young. If a Beatles song would come on in the supermarket or something like that. But I don't do karaoke. I've only done karaoke once in my life, and I didn't even sing a Beatles song. I sang Desperados by the Eagles. So I don't know I don't know why that is, but, you know, it's, I guess I just like to keep it all to myself. Third thing is I have had many friends and relatives try to convince me over the years that I should get on Facebook or Instagram or any kind of social media, and I have yet to be convinced that I should do that. I know it has its advantages for staying connected. I've seen way too much about the disadvantages. So I stick to LinkedIn. I'm not convinced that I'm going any further with social media at this point.
What's your favorite Beatles song, Jody?
My favorite Beatles song is "The Long and Winding Road," which is kind of akin to the past. I think I wrote about a long and winding road to the career I have, and I think there are a lot of things in life where you go through a lot, and you always kind of have this place you feel comfortable or come back to. So long and winding road is it for me.
Got it. Would you like to sing a few lines for us?
No, that would be like doing karaoke. So
next time when I'm prepared, I could have put that song in the background for you.
Okay.
That's great. So, but the amount of hobbies that you have is super fascinating as well. Let's talk about that before we move into the matters round. So, yeah, talk us through your hobbies, Jody.
I have a few too many, but I love them all, and they all serve a purpose. So I have been knitting since I was 6 years old. Was playing with some of those friends in the neighborhood I was talking about before, and one of the moms came outside and said, "Come on in, girls, I'm going to teach you how to knit." And I was 6 years old at the time, and I've been knitting ever since. And I've got a collection of beautiful yarns that I don't know if I'll ever be able to use all of them, but I try to find yarn stores or farms wherever I travel so that I can find some locally sourced yarns as well. And my most recent project was making a shawl that I wore with the dress for my son's wedding about a month and a half ago. And I'm currently working on a number of really nice fluffy lap blankets that I've been making for people for presents. So that's it's every knitting project is a challenge in its own right, but it's one of my best forms of therapy. I'm also a reader. My dad was an English teacher. I grew up with a den in the house that was always filled with books. Since 1999, when a list came out from the Modern Library of what they considered to be the top 100 novels of the 20th century, I set a goal for myself to read all 100 books. And I am currently on Parade's End by Ford Madox Ford. It's 868 pages. I've got about 600 to go. But after I'm done with that, I think I have about a dozen more to go. So I haven't liked all of them. I've got a friend who said, "Why do you finish them if you don't like them?" And I finished them because I set a goal for myself, first and foremost, but it's also interesting to kind of try to figure out when these books were published and what made them so remarkable for their time, or what it is that got them onto the list. So still on my way to the end of the 100, but the ones I've liked, I know I've liked because I miss the characters when the book is over. I also love backyard birding. I have more than a dozen bird feeders in my yard. And I participate from November to April every year in what's called the Feeder Watch project from the Cornell University's Ornithology Lab, where you set aside some hours on 2 consecutive days every week where you watch birds in a certain location, and then you record all the birds that you've seen and you put the data up into their website. And my record so far is having 23 species in the yard on one given day. So we'll see if we break that this year. The Feeder Watch project starts up again next Saturday. So I'm looking forward to that. And I love any kind of trivia or puzzles or anything like that. So even my kids know that they shouldn't ever call me between 7:30 and 8 o'clock at night, because that's when Jeopardy is on.
This is fascinating, Jody. I think people, if they have one hobby or so, I think, especially in this COVID, it would have been taken them far. But for you to have, especially not just to have it, but continually using it over your life period was amazing. I mean, like knitting, what's your favorite thing that you've knit so far?
The favorite thing I knit is probably the most recent one, and it would be the shawl I made for the dress for my son's wedding. Is pretty funky. It's made with 3 strands of yarn. It's cashmere, some string yarn that's got some little sequins on it, and then what's called feather yarn. So when you put all those 3 together, the feather yarn has all these pieces that are just sticking out all over the place, and it kind of looks kind of funky. So that was my aim. Took 4 months to make it because I can't sit and knit all day long, but it was worth it.
Definitely, Jody. I think your next one, start to build it now, and I'll collect it in the Dallas conference in May. So I will.
Yeah. Just tell me what colors you like.
Whatever you like it, Jody. Whatever you like it. I'm maybe blue.
Okay, blue it is.
Thank you. Reading 100 novels of the 20th century. I know you read, you have like, little more to go. Out of the 100 novels, your top 3?
Top 3. The Grapes of Wrath, which I never had to read in school. You know, the writing is so incredibly personal that you feel like you're there and you can pretty much taste the dust in your mouth. Second favorite has to be The Bridge of San Luis Rey, which is an interesting story. I just love the premise of the book. There are 5 people on a bridge. The bridge collapses, and there's a local priest who tries to figure out who they were and how they all came to be on the bridge at the same time. Third, what would be my third? Zuleika Dobson would be my third. It's a kind of an interesting story about a woman who is, she's so focused on her looks and having lots of men be attracted to her, but bad things happen to them if they are. So yeah, that was a kind of a strange one, but it's memorable. So I'll put that in my top 3.
Wow. I wish I can read one novel without stopping. But thank you, Jody. I think you inspired me. And I'm sure there are many other colleagues or listeners who normally are good in reading. I think there are a lot more, at least 3 out of 10 listeners, they are avid readers. So let them also pick up the list. The birding, that, and then owl collection. I think you missed that one.
Oh, I forgot my owl collection. Yeah, I purchased an owl on a family outing to Rockport, Massachusetts when I was 14, and somehow became enthralled with owls. And I have a collection of more than 400 of them. So anything from beautiful photography to silly little statuettes and everything in between. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got about a dozen of them on the wall right behind me right now in my home office. And I just, there's something about them that is of interest to me. Saw a really great exhibit of Robert Bateman wildlife paintings when I was in Ottawa back in the early 80s that further made me interested in owls. And the only downside to that, I mean, I love them all, but there's hardly a room in my house that you can go through without feeling like the walls are looking back at you. So you have to be prepared for that if you come in.
Oh, wow. So it can we grow like have owls in our home? Is it a pet animal? I have no idea. Pet bird?
No. I know you wouldn't do that. I do have some nesting. I've got some great horned owls nesting in the neighborhood somewhere because we hear them hooting at night once in a while. But no, the only pets I have in the house, I have two parrots. One is an African gray who talks, who makes all kinds of interesting sounds, who is probably screaming downstairs right now because he hears me on the phone. And the other is a brown-headed parrot who is adorable, doesn't talk, but does a lot of songs. And we have a turtle, a tortoise, who was, these are all my daughter's pets, and she collected them all and then left for her career. And but we enjoy having them here. But no owls, no real owls in the house. That wouldn't be good.
My God, we should definitely visit your home, Jody.
Come on down.
I think so. I think having one conference a year in US is not enough. I'll definitely find a reason to visit you. That's good. Watching sports.
Yes.
Why Tom Brady?
Do I like Tom Brady?
Uh-huh.
Oh God, I love the man. Yes, I do.
Nice.
And I know a lot of my friends don't, but after all these years, I'm used to that. So
that's it. Okay, wow. I think that's fascinating. I think this is one of the longest hobbies and interests that we ever had in the show so far. But that's beautiful. I mean, like, continue to do more and more of this. It will definitely inspire others who just work all the time, balance life. But no, you have been a true inspiration on that, Jody. So brilliant. So officially now we are entering what we call the rapid random fire question round. In honor of Howard Nutt, we call this the Nutters round. So there's no right or wrong answer or random questions. Whatever comes in your mind, Jody, let's just crack on with it. You ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah. So if a genie granted you 3 wishes, what would you ask the genie for?
Oh my. What would I ask a genie for? I guess probably extended good health would be first and foremost. I would like to, this is a tough one. What would you ask? I can't ask for any more yarn because I have more than I can use in my lifetime. I guess good health, grandchildren someday, and I don't know. What's the third one? I don't know what the third one would be, honestly, because I just, if you've got good health, then you've got kids who are raising their own families, and certainly, who isn't going to say world peace, but that's not on the horizon. I think I'll stick with the first two.
It tells you how grounded you are in your life. That's brilliant. So what's your favorite TV show? My favorite
TV show, hands down, is Jeopardy. I started watching it when I was in elementary school. We used to have to walk home. The school was 3 blocks away from the house, and we didn't have a cafeteria, so we all walked home for lunch and then went back to school for the afternoon. And Jeopardy was on at noontime, and I started watching it in the 4th grade, and I still watch it every day when I'm home at 7:30 and nobody interrupts me.
Wow, it's like there are few no-go areas in Jody's life.
Yeah, that's one.
So if given a chance, who would you like to be for a day?
Who would I like to be for a day? Who would I like to be for a day? Another good one. I guess I'd have to say the president, thinking that you might be able at some point to affect positive change, even if you only have a day to do it.
Yeah, why not?
That's kind of what I can think of.
So assuming Jody became the president of the United States, what would you do on that day?
Oh, what would I do on the day? I think there are a lot of things, a lot of ideas out there right now that could help people. I think I'd want to figure out a way to maximize employment. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who are quitting jobs right now because of COVID. A lot of people have lost jobs because of COVID. People wondering if they're ever going to go back to work. And I think I'd just like to maximize the opportunity for people to have good jobs so that they can, have a safe place to live and raise their families and educate their kids. And, it's kind of a broad answer, but there's no easy answer to it, but that's probably what I would want to do.
Hmm. So what's an amazing true story that you have heard?
I really can't think of anything like really super, but I will brag on my daughter a little bit. My daughter is a wildlife biologist out in the state of Washington. And the project she works on has gotten a lot of attention this year. Her project has been written up in the Guardian out of the UK. It's been written up in Smithsonian Magazine. She's going to be in National Geographic Magazine next fall. And she just had an opportunity to film a segment of a program with one of her childhood heroes, Jeff Corwin, who's had a long-running show on Animal Planet and is now doing a different kind of show for ABC. So that's kind of unbelievable to me that all of that would happen in a year. She's been at her job 7.5 years now, and so I think that's pretty unbelievable.
Wow, wish your daughter even more success.
Thank you.
You're a proud parent there. Nice. So if you could eat only three food items for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
3 food items. Well, I cook all the time. I bake all the time. So this may not seem like a well-rounded answer, but let's see. Eggs would be one. Donuts would be one. And what do I want in the middle there? A good ribeye steak.
Oh, egg, donuts, ribeye steak. Nice.
Yeah, hardly any of it healthy, but what the heck.
Exactly. So do you have a memorable kitchen fail?
A memorable kitchen, I'm sorry, what?
Kitchen fail, something went wrong?
Oh, a fail? Yeah, all the time. When the kids were in elementary school and we were doing kind of a holiday, either maybe Christmas or Halloween or something, I tried to make my own lollipops by, all that, melted sugar and things like that, and then kind of putting them in forms to make different shapes, and that was just like a total disaster. I haven't tried it again since, nor will I ever.
Is there any food that you don't like?
I'm not a mushroom fan unless it's on a pizza, but I will cook with mushrooms because my husband likes them.
Got it. So what's the best and worst purchases that you've ever made?
Best and worst purchase. Best and worst purchase. Best one, probably this house I'm sitting in right now. We love where we live. We've been here 27 years, raised our kids here. We've got an acre of land, so there's a lot of room to kind of hang out and sit out and enjoy some beautiful trees right now that are changing colors. Biggest problem with an acre is that all those leaves are going to come down, and it's going to be a lot of work. Worst purchase. Worst purchase. Probably my first car. I had a car that I bought in 1981, was called a Dodge Omni 024 hatchback. It was bright orange. That was the first mistake. But the car just always had some kind of funky issue to it and never could quite get fixed. So I didn't have it for very long, maybe a couple of years, but it was kind of always a pain in the neck.
Wow. So what's the most courageous thing you have done in your life?
Most courageous thing I've done in my life. Very much by accident, I got on a roller coaster ride at Disneyland. So maybe it wasn't courageous after all, but I have an occasional issue with vertigo. And I thought we were taking the kids on a fun little ride that was going to go around a couple of times and then stop. And it wasn't anything like that. And, but it sticks in your mind of things that you learn by being somewhat courageous and then learning that you should never do them again.
Correct, 100%. So what mythical creature would improve the world most if it existed?
A medical?
Any mythical creature that...
Oh, a mythical creature, a mythical creature. Mythical creature, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know a lot of mythical creatures. I don't read or watch a lot of fantasy or anything, but I guess the only thing that comes to mind is a dragon.
Dragon is always a popular one, Jody.
It's always popular. It's all I can think of.
That's the end of the Nutters round. Hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, good. I had trouble with those.
Yeah, I think you did very good. So let's move to the gratitude round. So who are the people who have been the most influential in your life and career?
Okay, I have a fairly long answer to this, but I'll go as fast as I can. First influence on my life would have to be my kids, who are now 32 and 29 years old. I just talked about my daughter a little while ago. And they were actually born on the same day, 3 years apart, so I call them funky twins. But I have always been, I've always admired the fact that they both found an interest very early in life and followed it all the way to a career. My daughter with animals, becoming a wildlife biologist. My son was always sketching things and drawing things, and became an industrial designer who now designs children's shoes. And he's been doing that for quite some time. So it's just, one of those things where you see them and, everything doesn't, every step of the way isn't a success, but you have a passion, you stick with it. And they both did that, and they're both very successful in their careers right now. So that's an influence on my life, mainly because it's kind of the path I've taken. I knew from a relatively early age that I liked to write things, and took that kind of winding path to get to where I am today. The rest of the people I'm going to mention are people that I've never met or never will meet. First, there's a group of people, and you mentioned one of them already, Tom Brady, from the New England Patriots and now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but also other sports heroes of mine from early on, John Havlicek and Larry Bird from the Boston Celtics, and Carl Yastrzemski from the Boston Red Sox. The thing that I see in all four of them is that they may not have been born with the physical gifts that some of their contemporaries had, but they knew they had something. They knew that they had something that could make them successful if they would only be given the opportunity. and then they just work their butts off to learn, to get better. And most of them, except for Carl Yastrzemski, became champions multiple times over. And I think that's just the whole, you know, you know you have something, you got to believe in yourself before anybody else will believe in you. And then just work hard. It just sounds so trite, but work hard all the time and make the most of the opportunities that you are given. And then my third influence is actually a more recent one, and it's the actor Regé-Jean Page. His interviews, I find his writings and his interviews as interesting as his acting, but he talks a lot about storytelling. And he talks about kind of the story behind the story in his approach to his, excuse me, to his characters. And I just feel like, you know, how do you say this? You know, actors have a script and they have a director and they have producers. You know, we proposal folks have our RFPs and we have bid managers and we have subject matter experts. And all of that contributes to whatever story we have to tell. But despite having all of those things and those people as our guide, we still have to look to our own history, our own experience, our own instincts, our own understanding, and what our gut is telling us to present the story we're really trying to present to our audience beyond perhaps what they're seeing, what they're being shown on a screen or what an evaluator might see on the page of a proposal. What is it that we're really trying to get at? Are we telling enough of the story? Are we telling them everything they need to know in order for the audience of the movie or the TV show to be delighted, or for you know, a prospective customer to make a decision in our favor to win business? And I just find his conversations fascinating, and there's one in particular where he talks about what he was really trying to portray by sitting atop a horse when filming Bridgerton. And I just, that just gave me a whole different way to look at how I develop the stories I need to develop for my proposals. So that's an influence, a recent influence on my work.
Wow. A lot of people in your life stay blessed on that, Jody. That's brilliant. So we thought we will remove this question 6 months ago, a year ago, but it's still there. So what have you observed lately that reminded you that people are kind because of COVID?
Well, I'll say a couple of things about that. I have to give a shout out to my wonderful husband of 35 years, Jim. He has been retired for 3 years now, but he spent nearly 40 years in the healthcare industry helping people. Wasn't always an easy job to do, and when he retired, he could have just sat back and said, okay, I've done my part. I'm done. Now it's my time. But he hasn't done that. He continues to volunteer. He, in his retirement, he has become a reservist for FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency here in the U.S. And he was able to do a deployment earlier this year in one of the super sites for vaccines for COVID out in California, which actually is where he's from. And he does a lot of other volunteering around here, especially for an organization called Waterfire here in Rhode Island. If you've never heard of it, look it up. You'll want to come to Rhode Island just to see it. And I also see a lot of other things in people in general, not in the news certainly too much, but just people being concerned for each other, you know, whether you know, you're on the vaccine or non-vaccine side. I see a lot of people just being concerned for other people and their families, and wanting them to be healthy and wanting them to be safe, even though there's not necessarily an action they can take to show that. But I just see a lot of concern for people. And at least in the circle that we have among our friends and our, immediate and extended family.
So what's one common myth about our profession that you want to debunk?
That it's just too stressful. I mean, it is stressful, but it's, the stress isn't everything. The stress comes with the job. But there are a lot of other things that go into the job that that are rewarding, and understanding that the stress is part of it kind of gets you through it. But I just think people look at it as, oh my God, it's nothing but stress, it's nothing but deadlines. Yeah, it is, but there's more to it than that.
Well said. So what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
That I would love proposal writing. I would have found a way to find out how to do it sooner, even though I've really loved all of the other experiences I had at the hospital, at the PR agency, at the bank, and doing my own thing as a freelancer. I mean, I would have pursued this.
What one advice would you give colleagues who are willing to pursue a career similar to yours?
Well, I do this with my students all the time at URI, and I've told many an intern that's come through our department the same thing, that learning is forever. It's not just I'm not just going to learn something on this project or on this internship and then, walk away. Learning is forever, and it's a two-way street. So if somebody, that I'm mentoring expects that the mentoring experience is going to be one way where they just, take what I have to give them, I remind them that they have something to give too. And that's whatever I can learn from them, because, I learn a lot from the young people I've been around in this career at APMP, in my department, at URI. And I want people to know that the learning never stops, and that you always have something to take, but you always have something to give too.
Well said there, Judy. Judy, what's next for you? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Well, I do want to finish the rest of those books. But I think that the next major step for me is likely retirement, although there's no date set for that yet. But given that my husband's been retired for 3 years and we bought an RV about a year ago, and he's taken a number of trips without me, I think he's looking forward to the day where I can actually go with him on a trip that's maybe, 5 weeks or a couple of months or something like that. So that's on the horizon. We just don't know how soon that might happen.
Nice. Judy, we talked about your early life, career, APMP, hobbies, interests, random questions, people in your life, few advices. Is there any part of your life or career or any that we missed, or is there anything else you would like to share in the last minute of the podcast?
I think I don't think we've missed anything. I think that the couple of things that I would want to leave people with, since you talk to a lot of people from APMP on this podcast, is that APMP has made a huge difference for me in my life and my career. I didn't know it existed. I was so happy to find it. I have met so many people from all over the place by being open to conversation, by being courageous, if you will, of just, walking in and sitting down and talking to somebody. I've made some lifelong friends. They might be people that I only see once a year at a conference, but we keep in touch. Some of us have visited each other if we've been in each other's towns. And we help each other. We ask each other questions on our own work, and we help each other out. And sometimes it's just connecting with somebody that kind of makes you feel better or gets you through a day or whatever. And then seeing them again at the next conference is like no time has passed. It's almost like you see them all the time. And I've met some of them under the strangest of circumstances at APMP events. But it's I can't say enough about the people I've met, and I look forward to the people that I have yet to meet. I met some wonderful people in Denver last month, and look forward to that continuing. The other thing I would say is I never knew when I was growing up that I would want to be a mother. And I have two wonderful kids that I've talked about here. And it's one of the most wonderful things in the world to me. And I've really enjoyed it. I think it's a huge success to have kids who get through their teens and onto their 20s, and now one in his 30s, and my daughter will be 30 next year. And that they still want to speak to you. They still like hanging out with you. They still say, I love you at the end of every conversation. They want a hug every time they see you. And I consider that a success at being a parent, and with my husband having raised two really incredible individuals. And now having a daughter-in-law that we've added to the family, who is just ridiculously wonderful in her own right. And we've been happy to welcome her to the family. It took them three tries to get married because of COVID, but they finally did it in September, and we're happy to have Amy in our family now too.
Wow. Please do pass our wishes to your son and Amy and everybody around. So thank you, Jody. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing. It's been an absolute privilege and pleasure to have you at Scribble Talk on behalf of me and Ashley. Thank you for everything, and stay healthy, stay happy, and hopefully when things settle down, I will see you at TELUS conference.
I look forward to it, and thanks so much for having me. I enjoy the podcast. I've heard a lot of my friends and other folks on it, and it's just a privilege to be asked. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jody.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchuscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode, where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundram,
signing off.